Some people think it's crazy that Colorado has a shot to win the Big 12 title this year, but I think they got a legit chance of being able to win it all in the Big 12 this year. The Big 12 is nowhere as good as what the Pac-12 was last season. Last year, the Pac-12 went out with a bang. That's the best that conference has been in 10 years. Colorado, they won 4 games, which was a massive improvement for them only winning 1 game in 2022. And they lost 5 one-possession games. They sold against Stanford. They gave up 10 unanswered points in the fourth quarter when they lost to Arizona. But going into this season, though, this team is massively improved compared to what they were a year ago. And there isn't a big gap between Colorado and the rest of the other teams in the Big 12. As a matter of fact, there's not a talent gap at all. If anything, Colorado has a slight advantage over the rest of the Big 12 because they have a more talented roster. You got Deion Sanders, the best quarterback in college football. You got Travis Hunter, the best player in college football. Those 2 guys alone should be good enough to give Colorado 4 wins. Then you have a top 10 wide receiving core. You got Travis Hunter, LaJohntay Wester, who comes from FAU. I watched this dude in person. He's a stud. And then you have a really good wideout coming from the University of Vanderbilt. You got improved trench play. You got some dogs on the offensive line, Jordan and C, and you got 3 other guys from the portal who were multi-year starters from their respective programs. And the new offensive line haul that Colorado brings in has only allowed a combined total of 6 sacks and over 2,000 pass reps. And their defensive line, they're going to be nasty this year. You got guys like Samuel Okinola from Pitt, who had 6 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. You got Deion Haynes, who had 10.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks at Pitt as well. You got BJ Green, who was a top 100 defensive player in the portal. He was a second-team All-Pac-12 selection. And you got a new defensive coordinator that has an NFL pedigree. With Texas and Oklahoma leaving for the SEC, the Big 12 is wide open. The only thing that can keep Colorado from winning this conference is the coaching. I do have concerns about Pat Shurmur being the offensive coordinator, but with Deion Sanders, as good as what he is, he's going to be able to make Pat Shurmur look like a mastermind. Deion Sanders, he knows he has to improve that clock management. He's working on it. I still believe it's not out of the realm of possibility for Colorado to win the Big 12. People act as if Colorado is walking into the SEC. The teams with the best odds to win this conference are Oklahoma State, who doesn't have good quarterback play, doesn't really have that good of a wide receiving core. And plus, you think about Kansas State, they're not really that good neither. Utah, UCF are probably the 2 teams that rival Colorado in terms of talent from a roster standpoint. But with how good of a quarterback Deion Sanders is, throwing to the wide receiving core that he's going to be throwing to, having an improved offensive line, this should be one of the best offenses in college football. All this defense needs to be able to do is get key stops in big moments. It's not as if they're walking into one of the best conferences in college football. If anything, the Big 12 is arguably one of the weakest conferences in the Power 5. Well, I can't even say Power 5 anymore, the Power 4. Outside of the ACC, there's not a single conference that's as bad as what the Big 12 is. This isn't a conference that recruits at a high level. If you win in the Big 12, it's because you're doing it due to the fact that you have solid coaching. And there are some really good coaches in this conference. You got Mike Gundy, Lance Leipold down in Kansas. But to say Colorado winning the Big 12 is just a crazy prediction, I don't think it's crazy. I think it's more realistic than it is insane. And I got them making it to the playoffs this year and winning this conference. And I'll explain that later on during this offseason why I believe Colorado's going to win the Big 12. But it's not insane if you believe Colorado can win the Big 12 title this year. This is not a good conference. They don't have stacked rosters. And I remember last year people were saying that they were going to get blown out by TCU, and they were a 20.5-point underdog going on the road against the runner-up in the national title game. You saw how that played out. These these teams are not that good up front. Outside of Oklahoma State, who has one of the best offensive lines in college football going into this season, along with Utah and maybe Kansas State. I mean, this isn't a conference that is going to be rostering Colorado to death like we saw when they played against Oregon and USC last year. Oregon State, UCLA, Oregon were all better teams than what the Big 12 has coming into this year. I expect Colorado to be way better than what they were in 2023. I expect them to win the Big 12 this year. You can call me crazy and saying all you want to, but this conference is not that tough, and the gap between Colorado and the Big 12 is about even. Colorado has a slight advantage. Got the best quarterback in college football, with the best player in college football, Travis Hunter, an improved offensive line and defensive line, a top 10 wide receiving core. I believe there's a great chance that Colorado wins the Big 12 this season, and I don't think it's insane to say that.